Well, the fat lady has started to sing, and it's been a few days now since Bill Cosby was found guilty of some of these charges that these dozens and dozens of women have accused him um, of doing and violating him, and everybody in the world is bugging out and choosing sides and, angry at everybody. Some people feel like it's a witch hunt. Some people feel like he's completely guilty, and, for me, I think I'm just more disgusted, appalled, and even frustrated because here we go again. And when I say that, what I mean is, once again, one of our own blacks that God had chosen to bless with opportunities has gone out of their way to tarnish that image, has gone out of their way to make a complete and utter fool of themselves once again. And it really baffles me because Bill Cosby was absolutely the exception to the rule. God does not bless everybody the same way. God does not give the same type of blessings to everybody. And Bill Cosby's academic resume is unmatched. Bill Cosby's academic resume as a black man is something to be celebrated, something to be proud of. This is a man who was educated, earned his education at some of the most sought after Ivy League white universities in the entire United States of America. Bill Cosby sat on, board of trustees at schools that parents would literally sell their souls for their children to have 5 seconds to be in the presence of the person sitting to his left or right at that table. And this man would go out here and intentionally violate anybody and assume that because of that resume or the ambition of that resume that his skeletons would be buried with him whenever that day came. How dare you? Once again, one of our own who has done good, done well, been able to provide opportunities for our people and open doors of opportunities in ways that nobody could have imagined. You were somebody totally different behind closed doors. We're all somebody different in the workplace as opposed to behind closed doors. At home, maybe you like to eat your cereal with your hands, or, you sit in the middle of the floor in your bra and your panties and watch your favorite shows or something. We're all somebody different at home or behind closed doors, I like to say. But to have to face the reality that Bill Cosby, behind it all, is nothing more than a praying, deviant rapist is kind of hard to swallow. When all this stuff first started coming out, I too was taken aback. I too like to wait, hear all the sides, see what everybody is saying. And although I don't believe everything that, all the women who've came out, no, I don't believe all of them, but I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. I believe that sometimes silence equals compliance. Bill Cosby still has yet to verbally defend himself. And the icing on the cake was when his deposition from X amount of years ago was unsealed, and, from his own mouth, he admitted to purchasing these Quaaludes or whatever these date rape drugs are called and using them on women, even if it was only one. I'm done with you, brother. I'm done. Bill Cosby is a man who had no problem, while having that seat at the table, calling out the problems that we as blacks had in our communities with the hope and, the ambition of, if I call it out, somebody that's respected, maybe it'll bring about a change, or maybe it'll, spark discussion or spark a different outlook. Many people who were offended by Bill Cosby, making statements that were very true in regards to black people specifically, how in our communities, it's more important what kind of sneakers, our kids have on their feet than whether or not they're reading at the grade level to match their age or above that level. In our communities, these kids are walking around with $200 and $300 sneakers at 6 and 7 years old, but they still wet in the bed, or they still, sucking their thumb or sucking a pacifier. I know people who have had 6 and 7-year-olds that go to sleep at night with a pacifier. I know 6 and 7-year-olds that don't know how to count to 10 and don't know their alphabet A to Z and Z to A. You ask them, to put a word in a sentence or pick out their colors, but they got the latest sneakers on their feet. These parents out here in our communities are spending more money on that. And then when these kids get gunned down in the streets, or if it's some sort of freak accident, they don't even have life insurance to bury their children. But they find a way to make sure that those sneakers is fresh to death. They gonna stand on line for that, all while living in low income inner city housing. So when Bill Cosby called out the issues that we had in our community, those that it, was pertaining to, they're up in arms. But they're trying to gloat now because he's fallen from grace. I know how to separate the two, and that's fact from fiction. I know how to separate the two. And what Bill Cosby did do is disgusting. As a father, as a man, as a husband, as a father with 3 daughters, 2 I believe are still alive now, but don't do anything to somebody else's child that you wouldn't want somebody else to do with you. Really, Bill Cosby? You was laying next to a beautiful black woman for how many decades? And you out here drugging chicks to take their coochie when you had your own coochie laying next to you every night? Disgusting. Disgusting. And for you all who were like, I don't believe it because Bill Cosby did not have the power 30, 40, 50 years ago that he had today, look at it from this perspective. The same way these groupie hoes go out here and they will give a blowjob to the security guard of their favorite rapper or to the hype man or to the third cousin removed that shines the shoes of that rapper, is the same way that these women are out here or were out here with Bill Cosby, who was rubbing elbows with the bigwigs in Hollywood. He may not have been who he is today then, but he knew the people who could make the decisions. So if I got to deal with Bill Cosby to get to the Weinsteins, I'm going to put up with him. So don't assume that because he didn't have a certain type of power that there was no way that these women would, one, be alone with him or would have trusted him or wouldn't have blown his whistle. No, because he was rubbing shoulders with the people that were in the now, the people that were and still are making major Hollywood decisions. You can't have it both ways. We have got to stop shaming potential victims and or victims because it puts them in a situation where they have to suffer in silence. And then when that behavior tends to manifest in ways that are negative or passed down through the children and all these things, we don't know why everything is, so out of control and I don't understand. You want to talk shame? Why didn't they come forward sooner? Let me talk to y'all chicks who got shamed from your abortions or shame because you got a man taking care of a child that you know is not his. You're not opening your mouth and running with that. Y'all keeping them secrets for 18, 21 years. So we can say the same thing to y'all. You want to know why they didn't come forward? Because they felt shamed or didn't want to be judged? Well then, when you leave the abortion clinic tomorrow, put it out there on social media. Put it out there after that child's 21st birthday, after that man done paid all that money, put it out there and say, I had a man taking care of my child that I knew wasn't his. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You cannot shame people. Same way y'all want to support these preachers and pastors and elders or all these different titles while they stand up here and condemn homosexuality in the pulpit and adultery and robbing and stealing and all of this when you know that they got babies by 10 different women in the congregation. When you know that while he up here talking about we going on church retreats and men bonding with men and being role models, that all the men is up there bending each other over in their own booty holes. But we stand and stand with them and want to condemn everybody else. You can't be hypocritical. Bill Cosby is a rapist. He might not be a jump out the bushes in a ski mask and a knife to your throat rapist, but anytime you put yourself in a situation where you are taking advantage of another person and they're not privy to it, you're a rapist. People ask me all the time why I don't drink, why I don't drink. I've said it and I'll say it here again. I don't drink because I don't ever want to put myself in a situation where I am not in control of me. Because if you disrespect me or get out of line with me, I need a clear head so that when I knock your teeth out, I need to be able to punch with precision or kick you in your nuts in precision because I will nut check a man in a second if he get out of line with me. That does not mean that women who have a drink are putting themselves in situations to be taken advantage of. But I know myself. I don't have a tolerance for alcohol. Personally speaking, I just think it's all nasty. But in the event that something go left, I need my head to be clear so I'll know how to defend myself if need be. And alcohol and me and being woozy is not going to mix. It's just not going to mix. I am baffled that Bill Cosby, even if any of this had never come to the surface, the reality that he was somebody like this behind closed doors, after all of the great that he's done, after all of the opportunities that he has created, after all of the great life lessons that he displayed. I can denounce Bill Cosby, but Heathcliff Huxtable, I am forever thankful for you. And I understand that Heathcliff Huxtable is a quote-unquote fictional, mythical kind of character, but he is real in regards to life, opportunity, and circumstances. You've watched other videos of mine, so you know I'm from the suburbs in Long Island. I've said it a million times. I was the only black in the class, the only black cheerleader, the only black at the slumber party. So my mother especially made sure that although she preferred her children to be in that affluent white environment because the education was better, she made sure that her children were conscious that at the end of the day, babies, y'all still black. And you might sit with their children and laugh with their children and break holler bread with them all, but when it's over, they still trying to question how your black ass got into class. So the teachings that I learned in the home about being black and of black descent, it was reinforced through Heathcliff Huxtable on shows of his, like The Cosby Show and A Different World. The Cosby Show is still very relevant today, as well as A Different World, as far as the teachings. If you know me, I use this too. I do a lot of mentoring, and we got the young people here. The garbage can lid episode from The Cosby Show is still 150% relevant today, and that episode is 20-something years old. It's all in the presentation. He spoke about steak and potatoes on a garbage can lid, but from a black perspective, it is always in the presentation of us, because we always have to be presentable. We always have to present ourselves differently to try to be acceptable or to be to have some sort of approval to help us get in the door. Those are lessons that these kids don't get today on television, because what they're getting is you have to go out here and fight and shuck and jive and, have low self-esteem and lower ambition in order to make it. Whereas The Cosby Show, something as subtle as every single episode, Bill Cosby made it a point to wear t-shirts and sweatshirts and paraphernalia from historically black colleges and universities. He didn't have to do that, but it sent a very strong message because it's a talking point. If I didn't know what Howard University was and he had on a Howard t-shirt and I turned to my mother and said, what does that mean on his shirt? It sparks a conversation. It gives people a reason to want to talk and ask questions and inform. From The Cosby Show, we got A Different World, which was half of the reason I chose to go to a HBCU with the help of School Days, because I didn't grow up around a whole lot of black people. So for me to see the black college experience, it was like, oh, I think I like that. I want to know what it's like to go to school with black people, see what it was. And even for me, it was a culture shock because I had to adapt, because I've never been, black enough for black people, if you know what I mean. So A Different World was a show that was relatable then and even more relatable today. Before A Different World, no other show tackled the issues that they did. A Different World was the first TV show to tackle the HIV epidemic, and they tackled it when HIV and AIDS was still fairly new, when it was still being found out, when all of the statistics and the preciseness that we know now, it wasn't there. Tisha Campbell was in that episode. She was the girl with HIV, and it was written from a realistic perspective of what people at that time were thinking in regards to how you got HIV, how it was transmitted, where it came from, and on and on. A Different World also did the date rape episode with Freddie and Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon. There was a date rape episode. As the seasons and things went on, the stories got more intense, but they were always relatable and realistic. There was a colorism episode with Kim. There was the dating violence one with Gina and I'm Down when he beat her up. Like, I can go on and on with the episodes that A Different World had, from self-esteem to just, insecurities. And he was the creator behind that. So I can say, Bill Cosby, I can denounce you all day. But Heathcliff Huxtable, I appreciate, because it also opened the door for parents who did not have parents that was as vocal as mine. My mother had no problem talking about anything with all of us. She shoots straight from the hip. She has no filter. You're going to get it raw and uncut from Glenda Faye. But for some people who didn't grow up in that type of an environment, the date rape episode would have opened up, a conversation for a parent to say, listen, this is what you got to know, you see how easy it was, how, Casanova he was with her, and, how she kind of, was naive and just it could have completely went left. It could have completely gone left. So for him to provide those kind of visualizations and opportunities of reality and what we can and what we can't do, and that black people are more than just the housekeeper or living in inner city housing or, comedic junkyards. I'm not knocking shows like Good Times. I'm not knocking shows like Sanford and Son, because those are classic shows too. Those are classic and they help shape me and Black America as well. But the Cosby Show in a different world was like, wait a minute, let's show the other side of blacks, because just as many housekeepers and, blue collar workers, there are black people who are doctors. There are black people who are lawyers. There are black people who went to college. There are black people who were married before having their children and raised their children in two-parent households and raised their children in a home and in a clean, stable, safe environment, and not in inner city America, or worked hard and didn't, have their kids on the system, and on and on. So he was able to showcase Black America in a different light. And it was a breath of fresh air from something different, because we done played the housekeeper. We done played all that stuff. And it is a part of who we are, because it was the housekeeper who put her child through college so that they could be a doctor or a lawyer. She took that money from scrubbing floors to provide opportunity. But he was able to also generate opportunities for people of color. And even his cast members spoke about that, he always made a point to have black people behind the camera and on, because he rubbed elbows and was in the know with the people who make the Hollywood decisions. And they aren't hiring us. They're not. You're lucky if you go on some of these blockbuster, movies and things like that and find 5 black people, let alone an entire cast behind the scenes. These were things he did. So the fact that he had this type of influence, this opportunity, these abilities to know that he would violate anybody in any sort of way, even if he had not admitted anything in a deposition, even if he was found not guilty and anything, the fact that he was able to lay his head down at night, knowing how he was behind closed doors or in the darkness, I guess you could say, is disgusting. It's disgusting. Somebody with all of that influence, somebody with a choice to not even have to think about something like that, how dare you? As a father, as a husband, how dare you? A wolf in sheep's clothing. Literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. Another argument on top of all of this is, people feeling like they just don't understand, what these women, why Bill Cosby, he wasn't who he was. Listen, I always say my integrity is not for sale, and everybody got a price. Some people's price is lower than the others. And if I want to be in this movie bad enough, and I know that Bill Cosby is the friend of a Weinstein type of person, I might have to break bread with him or hobnob or deal with him, because I want that movie role so bad, or I want to be invited to these mansion parties so bad. And he's the person for me that I can get close enough to get me to the bigger fish. So if I got to deal with the little fish in the pond to get to the ocean fish, I'm going to deal with that. I think we as blacks as well has got to stop automatically jumping on this whole, every time one of ours is accused of something, that it's always a setup, or it's always out for the money, or, the system is flawed. Now y'all think the system is flawed because an 80-year-old half-blind Bill Cosby was found guilty of things he did 50, 60 years ago, but you praise this same system that let OJ get acquitted, knowing damn well he is 1,000% guilty for killing Nicole and Ron Goldman. You can't have it both ways. You all want a system to be changed in general, no matter who the defendant is. Stop pushing your kids to be athletes and rappers, and start pushing them to be more lawyers and judges. We can't expect changes from a judicial side if there's nobody in the courtroom that looks like us. You can't expect somebody else to fight for your people more than you, because everybody else can't relate. You think I'm going to go in there and stand firm and defend somebody else when I don't know they struggle because I can't relate? We got enough athletes. We got enough rappers. We can't sit up here and complain because we're not getting fair treatment in the boardroom or in corporate America when the people in corporate America in the boardroom don't look like us. Because that's not what our kids are being groomed. Because they're being molded one-dimensionally. You can't be anything but this. You can't do this besides this. And then when they go out there and break their toe on the basketball court, or sprain their finger playing baseball and they can't read or write or don't have anything to fall back on, that same education that you as the parent failed to push them to understand that you need this more than this, or that you can do both in the sense of it, now where does that leave us? Now it's a witch hunt. But y'all are the same people that make sure you step in the name of love every time R. Kelly come on. Or as great as 12 Play is, it's still your love-making anthem. R. Kelly violated a child on camera and everybody still is like, oh, it wasn't him. Every time somebody comes out, it's always about money? No. People who are high profile and who are powerful in regards to money, because money is power, they're usually the worst kind. Because they, in their mind, understands the power of the dollar and the power of money talks. Bill Cosby thought he was going to die with these skeletons. And every time a comedian mentioned it, we've heard it in radio interviews and people, and it's like, no, I can't believe it. Or they're just a hater, or they're jealous, or, they wish they had his accolades. Whitney Houston was a crackhead behind closed doors. And America stood firm and couldn't believe that a woman with all that beauty, elegance, grace, and talent would do anything. Her brother admitted to being the person who introduced her to drugs, and y'all still blaming Bobby Brown for Whitney Houston's choices of doing drugs. You can't have it both ways. We got to start pulling our heroes to task, calling them out when they fall or when they start to make mistakes. I can separate Bill Cosby from Heathcliff Huxtable. I know they're one and the same, but I can appreciate and hold on to what Heathcliff Huxtable did in assisting my family and helping to support the shaping of who I am. Because I can honestly say, without A Different World and School Days, me going to an HBCU would not have been at the helm of my list. And it was still an issue when it was time to talk college, because my family was expecting me to go to the Harvard, but not the Black Harvard. But seeing the opportunity and the experience was something that I wanted. So to find out that Bill Cosby is somebody that gave off one type of a aura in public, and behind closed doors he was really somebody despicable and disgusting, it's a shame. Because his legacy has been ruined. For me, it has not, because I know how to separate the two, but it has been ruined because no matter what, this is what he will always be affiliated with. All the great music Whitney Houston left us with, she was a crackhead. That's what she's remembered as. All the great music and talent and unmatched, accolades that Michael Jackson had, people still look at him like a molester. Lies and all, but still, that's what he'll be remembered as Bill Cosby is now in that category. And I just hope that, I don't know what I hope, because I'm still so baffled at his own admission and the reality of this all. You never want your heroes to fall, and you definitely don't want your heroes to fall, from the pedestal that they're on because of something like this, because we all have choices. And I just hope in the end that whatever his punishment is, whether he gets jail time, whether he, because they're pulling all his accolades, they pulling him off these boards, they pulling these honorary degrees, so, the influence and money and, a seat at the table and closed door meetings, oh, that's over, brother. You will not be allowed back in anything else. No, they cannot take his education from him, and that's the blessing that you parents need to teach these kids, that once you have an education, can't nobody take it from you. At the same time, that education is no longer going to benefit him because people are not going to hire him or want him to do anything. He may do some interviews when all of this is said and done, but the enthusiasm for Bill Cosby, the man, is over. The reputation has been ruined. Lines have been drawn in the sand, and Bill Cosby, you're disgusting. Heathcliff Huxtable, I thank you, because your teachings will forever stay with me. I will continue to pass them on to the youth I know, my own people, and hopefully one day you will sit down and actually give an interview defending yourself and speaking as to why and how you got to this place in your life at 80 years old. And hopefully there can be some sort of forgiveness or understanding, repentance in some way, shape, fashion, or form. But, that's really my opinion on it. And I will sit back and just wait and see what a judge decides, whether it's jail or probation or, how this all is going to play out. And Camille, you're a stronger woman than me. I do believe that marriage is forever, but I think that there are certain things that are deal breakers. And as a mother first, it's more important to be a mom than a wife to me. And I'm not going to stand still that long. You're not guilty in the sense of violation, but I don't know how you do it. Marriage is not that important to me. Commitment to a man will never be that important, because anybody that can violate somebody else will violate one of mine. And there's not a heaven, hell, or jail cell built that would hold me if you violated one of mine. So I welcome you all's feedback. I thank you all who do watch my videos and have the courage to actually comment. I appreciate y'all who watch them in silence too and pretend that you don't and don't have the courage to comment too. Numbers don't lie. So I welcome your feedback. Let me know what you think, but that's my opinion. Y'all wanted it. There it is. Good night.